So just to begin, my name is Drew Glover. I'm a council member here in Santa Cruz. Thank you all for coming out this evening to the Depot Park Parade building so that we can have a conversation about homelessness and all the things that are encompassed in that. These seats up here, just for anyone that's sitting in the back that may not be able to see or wants to be more engaged in the conversation, these seats are all for everyone. So if anyone else wants to come up to the front, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, we'll hold it down, no problem. So I was born and raised here in Santa Cruz, as a lot of you already know. The topic of homelessness and representation in local government is incredibly important to me, not just because of my platform that I ran on for city council, but because of the concept of everyone coming at life from a different perspective, everyone coming from a different place, and everyone needing something different, everyone, to be able to survive and ideally thrive in the community. So I have implemented a set of policies and kind of tactics that have been used elsewhere in the country, not to solve homelessness, but to address the issue of homelessness and start to provide options for shelter that will then open up some of our other options of enforcement, of housing, of services, of public safety, public health, and a lot of the other things that kind of come into that. I've received a lot of emails over the last couple of weeks of, hey everyone, if you're just coming in, if you wouldn't mind signing in the sign-in sheet, that would be great. If you want to join a newsletter and get some information about what's happening in homelessness, please check the check mark. Otherwise, just sign in. It's great. You're welcome. There's a lot of different things that I get in the emails from different people that are concerned, and I want to open it by letting you know that I read through the emails and understand the concerns that I hear a lot of the time, which have predominantly to do with public safety, public health, the issue of substance abuse disorders, and the ineffective way that homelessness is being dealt with here in Santa Cruz. There's also a lot of misperceptions, misconceptions, and misinformation that I see a lot in the emails that really let me know that there's a lot of confusion around the proposals that I've brought forward for the city. So tonight I'm hoping that we can get through positive, respectful conversation with each other. Also with some set of just kind of common ground rules that we're going to not attack each other. We're going to be here to offer solutions and express our concerns. We are all on a gamut of emotions. Some of us may be furious, some of us may be sad, some of us may be neutral and not know what's going on. So in that case, just be aware and understanding that everyone's coming from a different place, and what they're saying or what they're expressing is what they believe to be right. So if we can just if we can just hear each other, and then ideally come out the other side closer together, which is the ultimate goal, with some ideas of ways we can influence and change. So now that just a quick introduction, bathrooms are outside. If you need to use the restroom, you go out this door, take a left down the building, and then around the other side over there. But if we wouldn't mind going around the room, I have the second mic. And if you could just let us know your name and then something that you want to talk about tonight with regards to homelessness. We'll go here, we keep it to 15 to 20 seconds each, that'll be great, and then we'll come back around for more conversation.
My name is Alicia Cool, and I would like to talk about safe transitional encampment locations that everyone would be comfortable with, and just that idea in general.
My name is Shanti, and I'm here to learn about Drew's solutions or proposals for this issue.
My name is Lisa, and I am interested in learning more about the law and homeless people being able to sleep peacefully and safely. And I'm a mental health worker, so I'm concerned about mental health challenges of having to move every day. And I'd also like to hear a little bit about the $10 million that has been given, and if that can be used for people who aren't in housing and shelter housing or on the street, how it can benefit them.
And if we could all just silence our cell phones, that would be amazing.
My name is Dan Boyd, and I'm here because I have a neighboring business, and I found out that a shelter was being put on the back of my business, and it woke me up to it, and it's always been somewhere else. And I'm truly concerned about the young people that seem to be hopelessly addicted to horrible drug use. And it feels like, to me, that this town's kind of
Because I'm actually very worried about the plight of the homeless, and the fact that Santa Cruz has not been able to do much about it in all this time. And I would like to know what things can we do, what can we work, and what can we give up if it makes it more comfortable, to make it more tolerable for somebody else's life.
I'm Craig Miller, and I'm here really to find out what all the various options are and so forth. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julia, and I'm here mostly concerned with how the city and county kind of pass the buck back and forth, and how to include businesses, neighbors, the community, and UCSC to come together. I think homelessness can actually be, people can move through it rather quickly if we all come together and support programs to make it happen.
My name is Melissa, and I am specifically here to speak about harm reduction policies that the city and the county run. And also just want to understand that when the city is quoting a federal lawsuit, do they understand the nature of that lawsuit, and what kind of data are you collecting when you go down to Camp Ross and you're offering shelter beds? How do we access that data of how many beds are available, how many are offered, how many are declined, why are they declined, and really putting the money where it's actually going to do something, because this has been an issue I've lived here my whole life, as you have, and it's been an issue since we were little. So obviously whatever we're doing isn't working. So yeah. And like, I want people to understand that if we are sympathetic to the homeless, like Camp Ross would never exist past a couple of days from a public health standpoint. So it really bothers me that, yeah, that we're acting like we care.
My name is Jordan Davis. I'm the Deputy Public Defender in Santa Cruz, and I'm here to be an ally to the indigent and disadvantaged community.
Hi, I'm Carol Paul-Hamilton. I'm a longtime resident, and I worked for my whole career with homeless and foster youth and adjudicated youth, and I spend a lot of time talking to people about solutions around homelessness. I think there are tons of really good ideas out there. I'm troubled with the process so far to date that hasn't included a lot of public ability to provide input, and it's been a reaction to bad choices that we've got involved in. I think there might be a better way to do the process, so that's my
And just pause for just a moment. Just so everyone knows, these seats up here are totally available for anyone if you want to come and be more involved with the conversation. I know that they're up in the front, but you're still welcome to come and join us. Go ahead.
My name is Tanny. I came here from Texas about 5 years ago, but don't vote against me. I'm here to listen, learn, and act based on the needs of the displaced population.
Hi, I'm Brooke Butler. I'm here as a 32 years Santa Cruz resident, watching this problem grow, and sorry, it's hard to think big all of me. I'm concerned with some of the decisions that have been made by the council and the way that the safe sleeping in vehicles has been conflated with the tent city that's happening. Those are two separate issues in my mind and need to be approached from two different angles. There's also then, of course, the drug epidemic that's hitting us really hard, and that's a separate issue. I think we've got like 6 or 7 different issues, and instead of lumping them all together, I'd like to see us really separate that out and also get a handle on the population and what their actual needs are, because they are not the same. And I don't know how we would, I'm really concerned with, like, I want to be compassionate. I understand that a lot of people get into homelessness not through their own actions, but then the people that are addicted to drugs and don't want treatment, how do we deal with that? And then how can we support the treatment centers, because I know that they're understaffed and they need to expand, to be able to accommodate the people that do want treatment. So I'd like to see a lot of that money go towards them. I think Janice could be doubled or tripled in size to be able to accommodate.
There you go.
Heather, my name's Raphael. I started Friends of Depot Park. I'm here because I want to have a conversation about bringing people together to find a common ground solution to the multitude of problems that we have. And I also wanted to talk specifically or have a conversation about what the sort of short to medium time frame is going to look like in a realistic way. Like what's going to happen with encampments in the next 3 to 6 months, and then beyond that, what's going to how might those encampments transform? What other options are on the table? And how does the current situation sort of, with respect to the Ross encampment, apply in the sort of greater, broader spectrum of addressing the multitude of conditions that lead to homelessness in the first place?
Daryl Darling. We've been in Santa Cruz 40 years and in the neighborhood here for 35 years. And my primary concern is, Sharon, I don't think there's anything that's been said that I'm not likewise concerned about. My immediate concern is that as a result of or where we are right now as a result of having not had effective address and analysis and address in the past decade and a half or longer. Now that we have a statewide approved source of funds for really doing something substantive, that we not rush into it, that we divide the issues properly, analyze them adequately, and spend those funds wisely to really provide ongoing sustainable solutions.
Yeah, my name's Tim. I came here actually just to meet Drew and see what this was all about. So full disclosure, I'm a physician at the ER in Dominican here in Sutter. For the last 20 years, a surgeon actually who takes care of folks who have bad injuries and bad infections. And about 18% of my patients each year are indigent or unassigned, which a lot of those are unfortunately homeless folks and down. So I'm just interested in trying to see what it's obviously an extremely complicated problem. And if there are simple solutions, all these communities would have resolved this long ago. But it seems sadly, in the 20 years I've been here, it's sadly getting worse. And I think it's a public health crisis, to be honest with you.
My name is Damon. I'm here to try and get some transparency on what's happening between the city and the county, the collaboration there, because we're not hearing anything from the county, and we're not hearing anything about people working with the county. I would also like to hear about what's the end game. We're setting up, or thinking about setting up quote-unquote transition camps. What are we transitioning to? I have not seen any answer to that yet. We're transitioning from a tent in a field in Ross to a tent or enclosure somewhere else, and then nothing following that. Where's the end game? I think that's a really good question. The other thing is, what makes the council or the groups that are pushing for the transitional camps think that the people behind Ross are going, that have stated at council level that they're not going to go anywhere and we don't want a transitional camp, anything with rules? What makes us think that those people are going to go to this new camp that we open up? Why not open up 1220 River Street, see how many beds there may fill up, and how many people just say, screw that, we're going back into Pogon's. Wait to open the second camp until 1220 River Street is full, and we have enough idea of how many beds we need. Why open a camp if we don't need it? Why open a camp if people aren't going to use?
Hello, my name is Benjamin Kogan, and I'm here to be a part of the conversation, be of support, of service, learn, and just, it's definitely a big issue. I have a suggestion, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it seems like it's hard for people in Santa Cruz and just people in general to get out from the under. Like if you're like, let's say you're unemployed, or you haven't been working, you have first and last and all that. So it's like you're kind of like, there's homeless and then there's homeless with money. And then we have a supply and demand where there's a lot of demand for housing and not enough. And so there's all these kind of like eddy streams, vortexes, and definitely separate issues where we have like a needle exchange program and drugs and this and homelessness. My suggestion is like if we could find a piece of land and some people could actually like sign a waiver like quiet at 10, no illegal drugs, we could actually get a lot of people that want to better themselves and get on their feet just by playing by the rules and building community and having like a community mess hall, a community bathroom, get a group of volunteers to keep it safe. In terms of the homeless that want to stay homeless or like go to the pogo nips, that was you can't force someone to live a certain lifestyle. Am I too loud?
No. We're just trying to keep it to maybe 15 or 20 seconds a person. Just so I have a big group and it's grown since we started. So if everyone could just let us know your name and then what you are here that you want to talk about.
Got it, and I was late, so I did not.
That's okay, yeah.
So I think you got the gist of it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. And just so everyone knows, if you're coming in, there's a sign-in sheet on the front desk right there if you'd like, and please sign up so that we know that you're here. If you're interested in receiving an informational newsletter, check that box. And also, for those of you in the back, if you're having trouble seeing or hearing for whatever reason, these chairs up in front are totally open for you to come and join us.
Hi, my name is Bill Levon. I'm a 25-year resident here in Santa Cruz and an activist, a bunch of things. I'm here to find out about, the money, the $10 million how that's spent. I did apply for a grant to help build tiny houses or teach homeless to build tiny houses and set up a network that would connect the homeless with homeowners throughout the county and possibly even beyond. I also just want to say one quick thing is that, I've been here 25 years, so it's always been homeless. It's just gotten worse. And it's not just Santa Cruz. I was just watching a video about Seattle. It's a nationwide problem, and it requires a nationwide solution. Because if we just fix the problem here, then, a lot of people are right. More people are going to come here because if we're taking care of people here and they're not some other town, then they're going to come here. So we have to deal with this nationwide, and I think I just would like to encourage, probably this town already supports Bernie Sanders, but I think he's probably, one of the best candidates to help us deal with this at the national level.
Hello, my name is Elliot, and I don't have a thing to suggest talking about because I'm mostly here to listen. I've lived here for my entire life also, and I'm just interested in having people in city government talk to people in the community more, and I'm interested in listening to what the city has to say about some stuff.
Hi, I'm Denise, and I'll be quick, but the first thing I want to say is I want to speak on behalf of the young people that you're sending a message to them that they have to follow the law, but there's another subset that doesn't. My son got dogged for not having mud flaps on his truck, and we lived with it for several years. He got them and they fell off. Now he's watching chop shops of bicycles. He's watching he's a tax-paying and is paying for his school, works full-time, and he's getting a message. And if he said to me, Mom, if I even put 1 foot out of the bar with a glass of beer in my hand, he said, I'll get arrested and I'll get a ticket, and look what's going on. So you have to recognize what you're doing to the young people. That's the first one. Second one is, I think that it's not Santa Cruz City's problem. We know that the surrounding cities are sending their homeless to the source, and we need to have them step up to the plate as well, including the county. And the third and last thing I want to say is, I know everyone wants to blame Reagan for closing the mental health facilities, but that was, we need to do something that's mental health plus incarceration that can get people the help they need while holding them accountable. It's not about putting them in jail, it's not about putting them in the hospital, it's about taking those people that have a criminal element, that have an addiction, and help them and hold them accountable at the same time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Claudia. I'm a 20-year resident here. I am from Europe, and what I see here is very surprising for me. I always go home in the summer to keep my sanity and not being frustrated. I just need my mind to rest and feel safe. I don't have a different topic to bring up, so I'm just going to pass them.
I'm Jane Real. I live in the neighborhood and I'm a resident. And I'm here to listen and learn. I really appreciate the opportunity to have a dialogue about this subject. I think I was really shocked that they were thinking of moving a temporary encampment right here to our neighborhood. And I think I agree with people who have said that we really need to find out who this population is, and that it's not one size fits all. And I think that we have a drug epidemic, and moving people around with drug addiction isn't really going to solve the problem. Thank you.
I agree. Hi, I'm Nick. I've been here for a little over 20 years in Santa Cruz. Even though it's longer than the guy from Texas, I'm from San Jose, so I might even be more hated still. But what I've seen in the 20 years I've been living in Santa Cruz, it's a great spot, and we're just really not treating it with the respect and reverence I think that the natural beauty of Santa Cruz deserves. When I look at the Ross camp, I see a lot of environmental degradation. I see a big health concern, and it really tugs at my soul. It's very tough to watch this. What I also see down there are piles of bicycles that are clearly not obtained illegally, and I'm wondering how we allow this to persist. Meanwhile, we're handing out 300 to 600 needles a day down there, and I think many people have mentioned. We have a very big drug crisis that we need to address at the core. And while I do agree with you that we need to talk about the problems individually, we do need to acknowledge that they're interrelated as well.
I'm Brett Garrett, and I'm just concerned there's a lot of people suffering, and hopefully find compassionate solutions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I also grew up in Santa Cruz. I'm here tonight to talk about getting low barrier transitional encampments, and also just hopefully to be an advocate for kind of changing the language that we use to talk about this problem. Like I hear a lot of dehumanizing of people who exist in the community and just don't really deserve to be, I don't think deserve to be talked about like that. So just considering kind of the reason I don't feel it.
Hi, my name is Elise, and I am not from here, and I don't think I'm going to be a permanent resident because I won't be able to afford living here. But what I do is I'm a political activist, and I started out in the mental health field in the 80s. And what I believe is that there is a political situation that we are all facing where the individualist culture, which is very extreme, and the property rights culture, which is, I think, very extreme, has failed to provide for human needs like housing and shelter and so forth. And I think that the homeless are being scapegoated. And you could use different words. It's a diversion, it's a way to talk about things, and it's true. But at the same time, I think that what we have not been able to do is to build an economy that really helps people have lives that provide the basic needs. And I think the homeless are being very artfully scapegoated by many groups that are money-holding and status-holding groups, not any neighbors per se, but very, very powerful and wealthy interests. And I don't think that that's being talked about much.
My name is Jim Weller. I'm a faith community organizer, and I've spent most of my time for 10 years in a small way, organizing to address the needs of a part of our population of people who are obliged to live without housing. So I think I understand what's going on better than most. And I'm actually pretty hopeful. We're at a stage where we can truly accomplish something remarkable with the funding that we have in hand now and the county-city partnership that we've got going on. So that looks good to me. I'm eager to find out how that shapes up. And I think in the short term, we do need 2 or 3 managed campgrounds. It's a struggle to find a place where that's going to be reasonable, but I think it's something that we need to do. And I'm here to listen.
My name's Pauline Seals. I'm here to understand the problem a little more deeply. And one thing that occurs to me is that a lot of this that's happening here, homeless, people with housing difficulties, etc., here and in Seattle, is because of these high-tech industries. They've got money. We should get some money from them.
Hi, my name's Kanan, and I just came tonight to learn more about what has been happening in City Council, and just I've seen some Facebook posts about it of yours, and that seemed kind of inspired that you were really interested in doing something about this. And just to echo what a couple other people said, I wanted to come as hopefully to serve as an ally for those in our community experiencing homelessness. And I didn't know, but I thought coming here, I imagined there'd be members from the community who were not actually part of that population. I wasn't sure how many folks from that population would be here and have their voices heard. So I wanted to echo what someone said about like remembering their people with, lives and issues. And anyway.
My name is Alex Sierra. I actually grew up in this town, but I was not here for a certain amount of years because when I lived here as a kid, my mother couldn't afford to live here. So what we did is we moved to Salinas, and I had to live in Salinas. I couldn't surf, I couldn't do any of the things I loved. And what my mother did was made the right choice. We couldn't afford to live here. She didn't complain about it. We moved to somewhere where we could prosper, make our money, and come back. We did that. Then I went to school. I went to UCSC, got a degree. I couldn't afford to buy a house here. So what did I do? I moved to Seattle to go work for a while so I could make enough money to come back and buy a property here. Okay? Now I realize there's a problem, and Drew's accused me of hiding behind a computer and, rousting him on Facebook, but it's not true. I've been to almost every meeting. But what I'm saying is, there's just an economic fact that this place is very expensive to live in. And you can drive 40 minutes away, 1 hour away, and find housing that's half the price. So, I just don't think it's fair. I'd like to see some representation from Drew, because he claims he's sitting there and doing things for everybody. Well, all our homeowners voted against this Measure M, and then what did you do? You tried to turn that around on us. And that's not supporting both sides, because a lot of us pay a lot of money to be able to support this. And I really think it's important that, yes, there is a problem, but it doesn't all fall on Santa Cruz County's shoulders to be the hub for the homeless. They're all coming here. Go to Carmel, go to Capitola, go to Scotts Valley. They're not helping us. Why? Because they're smart enough to put everyone on a bus and bring them to Santa Cruz.
Hi, I'm Christian. I would like to know more about the long-term plans we have for addressing the homeless crisis. I know we are all concerned about some of the short-term stuff that is going on. But I think if we have kind of a North Star idea, that it makes it easier and more palatable to agree to some of these short-term steps.
Frank Barron, long-term county resident and neighbor here. And I want to thank Drew and the City Council for taking Lot 24 off the list of potential spots, but I do sympathize with the problem very much, and I would like to see, a solution that works. I know that any neighborhood's going to be against it, but I think there's some that have fewer residents there that are going to be a better location for something like this, and maybe more than one, and spread it out. But I do realize also that it's not, just a city of Santa Cruz or county of Santa Cruz problem, and I think that something's going to have to be done at least at the state level, if not the national level, to require cities and counties to do camp in shelters and more services for their own homeless folks, so they aren't encouraged or bused over here to where if we do something and it turns out to be successful, that it could potentially become a magnet unless the other cities and counties are doing something similar in their own neighborhoods.
So just a quick time check, it's 6:35-ish. We have until 8, and I can go a little bit past 8 if we need to. But just to respect everyone's time, just share as much as you can, but know that we have another 20 people or something that
I was going to comedic rap. I came to Santa Cruz in 1970, and in that period of time, homeless people had the enactment in Buttes. It was called undesirable transient elements. So the labeling of people has been around a long time. I agree with Elise. I think it's the system that's failing everyone, regardless of economic status. And for a lot of years, I also spent 25 years here, 20 years in South County, so the struggle with people, whether they were documented or not, and their situation. I worked for the food bank, volunteered with food funds. I currently, for 6 years, have lived in public housing directly across from San Lorenzo Park. And I'm going to tell you, I'm sorry, and I appreciate that people are fearful. I have walked all over this town, night and day, hanging out with the poet and patriot, and leaving the pub, and crossing that bridge. And I've never had a problem. And I'm not afraid. Part of it is just recognizing human beings with all their frailties. And I've never had a problem.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'd like to talk about how gentrification leads to human suffering.
My name is Maddie, and I'm just here to learn more about the situation in Santa Cruz because I am new to the town. I'm from San Jose, and I've only been here for about 6 or 7 months, but I plan on moving here. And I do care about this, and so I'd like to hear a lot about stuff like this. And I do think that we need to bring more compassion into our minds in thinking about these people, because no matter how stable you think your housing situation is, every single one of us is 1 or 2 crazy things away from being homeless and being just where they are. So you can see it over
My name is Tao, and I also just want to encourage looking at homeless people not just as like a problem, but they're people and they're just like everybody, and like it's, I don't know, it's just kind of upsetting to see that people can so easily forget that.
My name is Paolo. I'm just here to listen.
My name is Cynthia. I've lived here a long time. I recently, there are studies being done about, how much housing has been built compared to how many people live in places and how long it will take to build enough housing for people. And, it's hundreds of years. Okay, so this is not going to be going away anytime soon from Santa Cruz. This is going to be growing because that's the data. You want data? That's what it's telling you. So I'd like to hear what's the solution.
My name is Serge. I do some consulting and I do advocating sort of on a county level. I do a lot of committees for homeless stuff. And I'm here to hear people's concerns. I think better design and better funding 4 different programs, hearing people's concerns so that the needs of the community are actually answered. Maybe not always in the way that people want, but needs need to be responded for everybody.
Hi, I'm Corey. I'm a potential intern, communications intern for Mr. Glover. I just I just moved here recently and from LA, and LA has a very similar problem with homelessness if you've ever been to Skid Row, or just, yeah. So yeah, I'm just here to listen to solutions and how to help the community.
My name is Wes White. I'm a Salinas resident, substitute teacher, president of Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union, and I'm trying to figure out how we can legitimize campsites.
Hi, I'm Jessica York. I'm a reporter for the Santa Cruz Sentinel, and I cover government and homelessness, so this is perfect intersection.
I'm Cassie. I'm a nurse, and I'm interested in this issue from a public health perspective because access to housing is a huge public health issue.
My name is Kathy. I've lived in Santa Cruz for 50 years, and I would like to feel more safe in my neighborhood. Numerous houses in my neighborhood have been robbed. The cars are broken into all the time. We read in these little news things that go around that some person's been arrested 47 times in the last several years and is not incarcerated. This bothers me. I would like to feel safe in my town.
My name is Darius. First, although my politics differ from Drew's, I do appreciate you reaching out and having these things, and frankly, I wish more of our city council members did have. Also, Chris Brown, I see him at various meetings too, that he doesn't need to be in, but he wants to gather information, so you might want to pass that on as well. But nonetheless, I'm actually here I was hoping to hear more from the homeless perspective. I'm on very social media, where I see all the stuff on Nextdoor, various Facebook groups and so forth, and it's, 90% the housed, whatever element of our community. Yet I want to hear from the homeless, why is it you don't want to go into a shelter? What is keeping you out on the street? What would you like to see? And I'm interested in hearing the homeless perspective because we very rarely get that. But another thing, just to comment, I noticed that this seems to be a real white people's problem. Okay, you see these Hispanics, the undocumented, they come across the border, nothing but the shirt on their back and a bottle of jug of water, yet they somehow don't end up homeless in this country. At least I don't see very many of them. And I look back and the formula seems simple: work hard, stay off drugs.
Thank you for sharing that. Just a quick disclaimer, just that we started in the beginning, and everyone, we're coming at it from different perspectives, so if we just can, as people are speaking, we may or may not agree with what they have to say, just allow them to finish their statement, and we'll enter into a conversation so that we can all discuss it in more detail as we move into it. But we just want people to be able to feel comfortable in expressing their perspectives, whether we agree with them or not. So, thank you for that. Who's next?
I'm Nolan, and I am just interested in learning compassionate human solutions that we can all find together. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Paul. I'm a resident of Santa Cruz since the early 80s, also a neighbor. And I'm here to hear what everyone has to say and to be part of the solution that we have to come up with. But also to be more active politically in our community, because I was shocked by how the city council rammed through an emergency shelter crisis declaration in 2 weeks with I felt inadequate public input. And I'm glad that you're having a meeting like this. We need to have many more of these around the city. And this came on the heels, as gentlemen talked about, Proposition M, which was voted down by 67% of the residents in this town, and yet the city council is basically trying to do an end around on that. And I don't think that really reflects the inclusiveness of everyone in our community. So, but it's a multifaceted, very complex problem we're facing here with homelessness in our streets, addiction, mental health issues, affordability of housing. It has to be tackled on a lot of different ways, and it needs all of us as citizens of the town to come together on a solution.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Carol Reed, and also neighbor, resident for a long time, and it is an extremely complex issue. I don't think I lack compassion. I worked as a public health nurse for almost 25 years. I've worked with substance abuse moms, I've worked with homeless parents, I've worked with everybody. I have a lot of compassion for them, but I also believe that we do have to have our rules. We have to look at each separate population. We have to see what we can do per population. And it is complex. I'm not trying, there's just no way to make it simple. It's a big societal problem, but I'm glad that groups can come together to give solution. It shouldn't be just on a small group of people. We all can be involved.
My name is Ernestina Saldaña, and I have been living in the Santa Cruz for over 25 years. I have been homeless in this time twice, and with my children. And this is not because I was not having an income. I was working at the time, but as everybody knows, you need to make at least $37 per hour in order to pay for rent and have some money to eat after that. I solved the first time my problem by renting a bed in a garage with the 3 bunk beds. I paid $250 for that bed, and it was only 1 bathroom for 12 people. This is the way how we Latinos can avoid to be in the streets. And unfortunately, at the time for Measure M, most of us are not able to vote for measure that is affecting each one of us, but we are the majority of the renters in the city.
Hi, my name is Nancy, and let me clear my voice. There's so many things I want to say, but we talk about tonight. But the thing that's most on my mind is what is the division that we have. We seem to have come to a 3-tier city with landlords, renters, and homeless people at the bottom. And we seem to blame up, blame down, blame, but it's not really working, and I don't see how we're going to move forward unless we allow that we all live in, we're just all living here. And, you know, dividing does empower someone else, and we have been divided. Now, I think transitional encampments are the answer for a good segment of the population in this town, and we had momentum going a couple of weeks ago, thanks to Drew. Then it was lost, and I would like to talk more about that because I think it is an emergency if you live outside every single night. It is an emergency right now for hundreds of people, so I would like to see that momentum back. And everybody is being heard, you know. Sometimes when you speak up from the less empowered group, it sounds like you're just wanting something that doesn't belong to you, but that isn't necessarily what's going on here.
My name is Shannon, and I'm really interested in this issue. I'm really concerned about the MRSA that's going around. There's a lot of people with really deep wounds that are really, really severe. And I encountered a man a few weeks ago on the street, and I was trying to help him, and I started thinking about what the day-to-day life is like to be homeless in this town, and the services are just so spread out. And if you're on foot, it's like it takes your entire day to eat, maybe get some medical services. If you're trying to go to the methadone clinic, that's somewhere else. And then you're trying to find a place to sleep too. I mean, and then people are complaining that they're going to the bathroom on the street. Like, no wonder they are. What are they supposed to do? Go on a hike every time they have to go to the bathroom? I mean, it's just really, the logistics of being homeless is really insane. And I hope that some kind of comprehensive, centralized plan is being talked about.
My name is Ursula Reed, and I support the Ross camp. And I support it because of how wonderful the people are and make sure that they take care of everyone. No one goes hungry. And people have, making sure that people that have disabilities are taken care of and they have food and different other things like that. So I hope that there isn't a closing of it. I hope that there is good shelter brought in for them. And if they need to expand a little bit, it's here in town. And you know what? They're doing a good job. Why take it away? Why make them go to a dusk to dawn where they have to take down their camp every day and carry it to where? It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm Ryan, and I want to respond to a couple people. For you saying for people to have to leave town is, these people, this is their village. They aren't going to leave town, right? They're going to be here. For you who ask people that have issues with homeless and you know why they won't stay in a camp, there's a million reasons why certain people won't stay in different kinds of camps. Just like you, and just like everybody's individual, right? They're not all going to go into the same kind of camp. They have mental issues, they have physical issues, they have friends, they have people that feed them and take care of them. There's all kinds of different things that have to happen here. You know, we have to have places like, let's say at the Ross parking lot, let's have like a weekly, and I don't want to close the Ross camp, I think it's good, make it better. We should have meetings where we meet with the community in the parking lot, show the people there that have all kinds of skills. There's artists, there's musicians. Let's get together as a community and share time together and food. If you're afraid not to do food, then don't do that, but share items, share music, speak together. For being afraid in the community, you can be afraid in any community. I've lived in all kinds of communities here, rich communities and poor communities, like they're way out in the woods. And you know, you can be houseless, you can be housed, you can have the same issues. There's all kinds of places where I've been where there's houses where there's all these kids or people stealing. They're not houseless people that are doing it. You know, it can be anybody that's doing these things, these crimes that's getting blamed. Murders, a lot of the things that are happening are people that you feel safest with, that your family members, your coaches, you know, your hospital people, whatever. Those are, you know, you think about the statistics of where the real problems really lie are people that you really know. A lot of these people, they don't know these people. They're not likely to go after strangers as much. You know, and I've been accosted many times as being housed. I love living in nature. And I told someone about getting housing, and it was really hard for me when I tried for a while. And I said, well, you know, I don't need it as much as other people because my body's wearing out because I'm 66. But other people need it more than I do. She said, well, don't think of it that way. You need it too. But I've been shot at. I've had my stuff taken away. I've had guys come up and wake me up in the morning, cage fighters guys going, what cell were you in? And they've got bats and knives and they're poking me around. That, you know, people with houses have taken my stuff away. And they're going, well, you don't need this. And a few years back, it was below 30 off, and even the teens, it was my rain gear, my cold weather gear, I was taking it away. These kids, every night, they would attack me and break my windows in my car when I was living in my car. They would shoot at me. You know, come on, you guys. This is happening to everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're in a house or not. Okay, you got to stop me.
Thank you for sharing that line. I really appreciate appreciate it. And hopefully we'll be able to hear more from you throughout the evening.
Hi, my name's Brian. I'm an earthling, a human being, and an American. And so I feel like I should be able to go pretty much anywhere in the United States. I know that's not true because of privatization, etc. But one of my problems that I have with people that address the homeless is, doesn't that sort of sound like when you're saying the blacks or the Hispanics or the homosexuals? The homeless don't move as one creature. We don't all, I'm not even saying we, because I'm not homeless. I live in a vehicle and it's a mobile home, which is, I didn't come up with the name, it's a mobile home. So guess what that means? I have a home, and I paid for it. I own the whole thing. Some of the people in their homes, the homeful that I like to call them lately, don't own their homes. So, but they like to think they do it until the bubble bursts, like it did for a lot of people recently, and then they lived in a vehicle or on the street. And there's a lot more to be said by a lot more people, but I just wanted to say mainly that. And another thing, that the homeless don't just go around and trash things like natural bridges. Some of us are volunteers and have hundreds of hours of picking up trash at natural bridges. I haven't seen somebody there, so I'll see you later. Picking up trash is a good thing to do.
Hi, I'm David. I am a longtime resident here, and this is a huge problem for Santa Cruz amongst other places. I'm here tonight, hopefully to hear some, at least starts of solutions, if nothing else.
My name is Tina, and I'm just here to listen to the discussion.
All right. Hi, my name is Pritesh. I'm a volunteer resident in this community. Just here to see everyone's concerns. The concern that I have is if we have this issue today, when we have historical low unemployment rates, what happens when the market turns? This is just going to exponentially become a bigger issue unless something is done about it.
Hi, my name is Mary. I've lived here about 10 years. About a year after I moved here, I found myself very close to being homeless. I was a single mom with my young kid, so I get that part of it. I just came here to learn and see where I can help, and thank you both of you for sharing your opinion. I think it's really good to listen to.
Paul Franklin, 30-year renter, Santa Cruz. I'm here hoping that people can acknowledge that homelessness is a symptom of a larger problem. Revealed, for example, by the 2010 census, which shows about 10,000 houses being used not as residents, being used as vacation homes, as second homes, as Airbnb, as on the market for sale, waiting for the highest bidder. Epitomized by wealthy people and corporations coming in and buying up the housing stock and then squeezing it for maximum return on investment. In Finland, there are no homeless because people are limited to own one home at a time. Capitalism. I'm waiting for the day when politicians get a spine, enough of a spine to address the real problem that fuels symptoms like homelessness, like drug abuse, etc.
My name is Heidi, and I'm a local resident here, and my problem isn't really homelessness because I've met a lot of really cool homeless people and very decent people and good people. I've had homeless people return my wallet once when I left it downtown. I do have a very serious problem living in this neighborhood, and I recognize many of my neighbors here with crime in our neighborhood. And we have non-stop crime of just, almost everybody in my neighborhood has had their car broken into, and it's a tragedy. You know, a lot of us don't have the money to pay for new windows. I have to double bolt my locks every time I leave. You know, often I sleep upstairs in my house because I don't want to sleep downstairs. We have a lot of crime in our neighborhood, a lot of things broken into. I don't own a bicycle because my bicycle was stolen, just like a lot of you. So I don't have a problem with homelessness. I do have a problem with crime, especially on the west side. and I would really like the city to pay more attention. I also feel, I'm almost certain that a lot of homeless people are victims of crime as well. People constantly, repeatedly steal from people and they're not punished, and those people need to be taken care of, not them.
I'm Cynthia Matthews, I serve on the Santa Cruz City Council. I'm very interested to hear the general agreement that this issue is complex. And that's, I think, the starting point. I'm here just to hear people's experiences and perceptions. Thank you.
Hi, I missed the first part of the meeting this time, but I think I can figure out. We're introducing ourselves. My name's Lolette Edwards. I'm here mostly to listen. I have opinions, like most of us. I was including the feeling that there are grave problems with inequality in our society that is very difficult to address effectively at the local level. And attempting to address it by providing land free to some people, again, has a lot of potential unintended consequences. I would agree that, in my opinion, the whole issue is really complicated, and I hope that most people can appreciate that complexity, and of course not vilify people with differing viewpoints. If a starting point is a belief that private ownership of property is invalid, I think that's a valid viewpoint, but it's probably not a place that a community as a whole is going to end up in sufficient agreement that we come together with a solution. It's a viewpoint to hear, but it's not an endpoint we're going to come to anytime soon, and I personally don't share it. I am a believer in private property with some limits.
Isaac, and then Robert, and then we'll be done.
Hello everybody, my name is Isaac. I go by Lyrical Eye. I'm a recording artist, a poet. I've been a part of Santa Cruz for over 13 years, and I've seen exactly what has been going on here with the rent raised high, with there's no place to sleep at night, and for the people, I've been houseless myself. I've been sleeping in my car. I actually sleep at a person's place right now, but I understand the effects that it has on people, and I definitely feel compassion for the people that are out there in the Ross encampment. I think it's important for us to not enable people, but give people opportunities so they can better themselves and have a way that they can do it, because I think if people have a willpower, they can make a change to get out of that situation. But I think it also takes the community support to have compassion and not have a blame or this game, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all want to be able to survive and have that, and Santa Cruz should have that support. And as an artist, I'm just here because I care about the people, and I think it's important to be on the front line instead of behind the back line. So thank you.
I'm Robert, and I'm here for a couple of purposes. One is I'm recording for free radio, so some of what you all said here will go out on the air on Sunday. You can find that at 101.3 or freakradio.org. And hopefully Wes White over here will be able to play a video for you in case you want to review any of this stuff. It's really good and rare to find an actual situation where the community is asked to speak. And I'm often concerned about this at City Council because I think that they have these incredibly strictured kind of situations where you don't get that opportunity. Instead, it's the staff that drones on hour after hour and presents you with solutions that aren't solutions. We have a situation, there's a mythology that on April 17th, when the Ross camp is slated to close, there will be so-called adequate shelter for people. Now, even if all the shelters, including Lot 24, which doesn't look like it's going to be a shelter, were available, there isn't adequate shelter, so they're lying about it. Or let's put it this way, they're being very optimistic about it. And people like Councilmember Matthews here goes along with that. And I might also like to make sure that Councilmember Glover here does not go along with that and actually moves to make sure that the Ross camp does not close on the 17th. Unless you want to see people streaming into your neighborhoods, into the Greenbelt, off into situations where they're far less secure, have no toilet facilities. All this is obvious to this city council and to the staff, who apparently are greedy enough or interested enough or simply focused enough on getting financial support to cook up a solution that actually is not a solution.
Yeah.
You're approaching me because you want me to end my I'll end my tirade. I got to say something else, but we need to take this out of the hands of the city staff and the city council and put it back into the hands of the community.
Yes, yes.
And that's what I think these kinds of meetings are, with or without the city council present. Thank you.
2 more, and then we're good. If you'd like to. You too. Try that. 4. Keep it going down. Just these 2 really quick. Just your name and what you want to talk about tonight, or you can pass.
I'm Cruz, and I'm sorry I'm late. I just got off work. I am at Ross City Council, and no longer at Ross. I am in a shelter that has no rules, no curfew, no drug test, and I have proceeded to use my 2 weeks that I've been there on my own to use that as a stepping stone and get a job. Which I think, it's amazing what you can do when you have a shower every day. And I'm working really hard with a few other people on the council for the Ross camp, and we are a work in progress. It's been raining, and so I understand it looks like a real mess, but we've had meetings with the fire chief and been accountable and done everything that we've been asked in a timely manner, and I just feel like, why would you have us have a meeting with the fire chief to get these fire lanes in the Ross camp if you're going to close it down in a week or 2?
Just your name and whatever you want to talk about tonight, or you can pass.
My name is Taylor. I'm just here to listen and give support. I'm a full-time student and just thought I'd open my presence a little bit.
All right, wow. So that was wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for the chorus of voices and perspectives. So we heard a lot of stuff that ran the gamut, from public safety to the rights and not the humanization of people, to the need for public health concerns, to the support for transitional encampments, the support for the Ross camp, to, I have an extensive list here. So we'll go back to those topics in just a second. I want to start by giving you a rundown of what I'm currently doing in the process of things, because there were some questions about timeline, what's been going on, what's happening, because it has been moving. In relationship to the speed that's been moving with homelessness in the past, we have been moving very quickly over the last 3 months to move things forward. So as you walked in, there was a packet on the table over there. I only printed 50 of them because I didn't know how many people were going to be here. So if you didn't receive one, you can sign up in our newsletter page right there, and you'll get full digital versions of all of them. And as you came in, also there were 2 of these. Someone took the other 17-inch one, but that's okay. This is the one that I wanted to focus on, and this is the 3 steps essentially that I'm working on to address homelessness in Santa Cruz. And so the 3 steps are shelter and affordable housing, public health and safety, and the prevention and stability of current housing in Santa Cruz. So what you've been experiencing so far has been step 1, which is the establishment of shelter. There was a statement about the declaration of shelter emergency being rushed through when someone was talking about what they wanted to talk about. I just want to provide some clarity on that. There has been a declaration of shelter emergency on the books in the city of Santa Cruz since January of 2018. So that was far before what we decided on a couple of council meetings ago with regards to the declaration of shelter emergency. The only thing that we were doing was not only renewing it and making it so that it would continue moving forward, but also adding some additional language in it that would make it so that we could more expeditiously establish transitional encampments to work around zoning regulations, which makes it so that we can bypass, say, the planning department and having to go through the planning department to then establish a transitional encampment, but we can still have public meetings and hearings, which are the city council meetings, that allow y'all to come and express your thoughts, concerns, or feelings about a specific location for a transitional encampment. The transitional encampments themselves, this is another area of confusion that I want to make sure, because it was said in a couple of the statements when people were talking, is that the proposed programs, the safe sleeping programs, the safe parking programs, and the transitional encampment models are not the Ross camp. I just want to stress that as heavily as I can, is that the models are completely different in the sense that they incorporate sets of regulations and rules, requirements for residents to be able to participate and live in the space, as well as they're data-driven. So the Ross camp right now has no official management structure. It has no nonprofit that's the kind of the overseeing, overarching people that are helping to maintain the structure. There's no main security gate in and out. There's no residential list of who's in the camp right now to be able to understand what population is in there in general. All of those things are incorporated in transitional encampments. And not only that, like I mentioned before, they're data-driven. So this proposal wasn't something that me and a group of individuals just one day said, hey, let's do transitional encampments in Santa Cruz. They're based off of models that have been successful in moving people into transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, as well as services that include substance use disorder and mental health services. So they have higher rates of getting people into those than other non-managed encampments. And it makes it so that there's the issue of safety in the neighborhoods that people brought up. So transitional encampments have shown that when in the neighborhoods that they're established, there is no increase in crime. In fact, because of the buy-in that the transitional encampments develop from the structure of the way that they're put together, the people in the camp actually act as security for that surrounding neighborhood because there is an incorporation of required participation in the camp. So that means that people that are in the camp receiving shelter are required to conduct between 4 to 10 hours a week of participatory labor, essentially, or sweat equity in the property. So this could take the form of running the main entrance gate, this could take the form of doing trash perimeter cleanups, this could take the form of running security. The key is that they're all trained by the nonprofit. So this in itself has created, like I mentioned before, a sense of buy-in and pride. If you're building something, you have pride in wanting to make sure that it's successful. If someone just gives you something, then it's easy to trash it, throw it away, not care about it. But if you feel a sense of ownership in something that you're doing, a sense of pride in your community, statistically, those people within the camps have taken it upon themselves to kind of and when I say this, people get misconstrued. When I say self-managed, I do not mean that there is no oversight management. When I say self-managed, I mean that there is an overseeing management nonprofit, but that the people in the camp participate in the management process. So it takes away this paternalistic energy as well. They're not little kids that need to be watched, but instead they're active and participating members of that community. That was step one, right? And that's just establishing the shelter options, because in Santa Cruz there has not been the option to establish transitional encampments or manage encampments up until now. And so we're able to start looking at these models, identifying locations, working with nonprofits, and creating these structured communities that can incorporate organic gardens, they can incorporate all kinds of different things that allow people to kind of uplift themselves. So establishing transitional encampments. Next, under that affordable shelter and affordable housing is identifying additional funding sources for affordable housing. So who here knows about the TOT? Show of hands. Okay, stands for Transient Occupancy Tax. It's a tax that's put on hotels and other things that have to do with tourism and vacationing. I spoke with the city finance director. For every 1% that we increase our TOT, which right now is arguably rather low, we generate about $1.7 million into the general fund that could be used for affordable housing development. So we can look at alternative revenue streams, like looking at the TOT, like looking at things like real estate transfer tax, like looking at speculation tax. So, or vacancy tax, right? Because what was mentioned before with the census is that there's a lot of vacant houses, a lot of second homes. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to be looking at ways, like for example, Berkeley has a speculation or real estate transfer tax of 12%. Santa Cruz, 1.2.
Oh.
So there's a lot of opportunity for us to look at the ways that we have our financial system structured and how we can generate additional money for affordable housing. But then the question is, well, what about the affordable housing? Where are we going to build it? That is the next thing, is creating a city land trust. Because if the city can start acquiring properties and then developing those properties into higher density facilities run by a third-party nonprofit, then the city can take Section 8 vouchers. Because one of the hardest things we have in Santa Cruz is getting landlords to take Section 8 vouchers, which is hard to believe because Section 8 vouchers basically are guaranteed rent for that landlord because it's coming from the federal government. But there is a stigma attached to Section 8 vouchers because of the low income reality of people. They don't want to get stuck with a low income person that they don't like or that they feel is going to be a hoarder or all these other excuses that people have for not taking Section 8 vouchers. So not only can we encourage landlords through the more carrot model of encouraging them to take Section 8 vouchers and figuring out ways to make that more important or more attractive, but also, but also to open up city or government-owned housing to be able to accept that Section 8 vouchers through a city land trust. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is public health and safety. So we heard a lot about that, whether it be public safety and feeling safe walking around neighborhoods or people stealing things from properties, or whether it be public health with needle exchange or the lack of needle exchange or the issue of drug addiction, which from this point forward I'm going to start using the term substance use disorder instead of addiction because we want to start changing the language around that. So who here knows about Janus? Show hands. Okay, who here knows about Janus and its funding problems? Show hands. Oh, way less. Okay, so Janus is in an incredible pickle right now because they have amazing staff and amazing nurses, but they don't have enough money to pay them a living wage. So we're losing a lot of them. In fact, we have a representative from Janus and the National Union of Healthcare Workers with us today. So would you like to come join me at the front? Because I'd love to have you respond. Yes. Thank you for, yes, exactly. So, you don't have to talk if you don't want to. Yeah. Or they can do the talking, you can just be there with that awesome hand. So, yes, I'm going to let them talk about what's going on with Janus and what we can do, but it's important to realize because in your little frequently asked questions page that I gave you that looks like this, there's the question of what is the city going to do about drug addiction and mental health issues, which is a question I get a lot of the time. And my short answer is unfortunately not much. Because that area, and this is where it got back to the city and the county pointing fingers at each other, is that the county is required to do health and substance use disorder work. They're the ones that issue the funding to Janus. And there's a video that's online, which I'd be happy to share with you, of Janus workers in general, pleading to the county board of supervisors to increase their funding, and she'll tell you why. Oh, that was it. Whatever you want to share.
My perspective.
Yeah.
So
and who are you?
My name is Sadie Smith. I'm a treatment tech at Janus. Started out at Main Campus, which is a residential treatment center and a detox unit. Right now I'm at perinatal, mostly full-time there, and that is moms and babies. I'm taking care of moms who are, most of them have open CPS investigations, and we're trying to help them be better moms and kind of, we're also opening up a program to help them build their families back so that they can have custody of their children. At any rate, what I want to talk to you about is the parity in care with substance use disorder and mental health. I would like to see that change. Janice, it would be wonderful to see Janice employees trained in both dual diagnosis for mental health treatment as well as substance use disorder, because most of the clients that we see have a mental health diagnosis along with their substance use disorder diagnosis. We just have a lack of funding for mental health in our community. We have county mental health, but we see a lot of people fall through the cracks as far as that goes. The jails end up treating these clients for mental health, and they're not equipped to do so. So they come to us and they're not getting treatment, and they may, coworkers of mine or whatever, if I point out, hey, that client needs to go see a doctor perhaps for that mental health diagnosis, other people that I work with don't know how to handle that. So I would like to see training in mental health disorder as well as substance use disorder. As far as NUHW, which I'm wearing our lanyard and looking to get us fair wages, and we have seen a high turnover of employees. We had a united force at the beginning of, was it 2018, with our coworkers, but our management is very anti-union and trying to break the union apart, and so people are getting retaliated against our employees, and as new people come in, they don't know that they're part of the union, and so we're trying to organize to get us fair wages. I would like to see us get more training. That is a high priority for me. And it would better serve our clients and better patient outcomes, client outcomes across the board. So, what else?
Can I ask you a question about Jan's costs?
I'm not familiar with the budgets
Maybe.
at all. I'm on the low end here.
I was just wondering what the comparison was between the cost of housing somebody at the Santa Cruz main jail where they're not getting treatment versus housing them, getting them a bed at Jan's, and how about...
So the cost, my guess would be that it's cost more to have them at the jail than at Janice.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we hope. That's the goal. That's my goal, right?
I can see that they're not getting any treatment at the jail.
Zero. I can't speak to the incarcerated and how that looks and how their treatment is there, because I'm not employed there.
Well, it all starts with getting a for-profit corporation out of jail. Me and you have talked about, well, I've tried to get you to, I don't need it.
Can everyone back here?
No.
Here, please.
Okay, it's not on. Oh, okay. So, we have a for-profit corporation that runs the medical in the jail, California Forensic Medical Group. They run 28 of the counties of medical care for jails. They provide substandard care. So the reason that you have a disconnect at the jail from people actually getting help is that the medical care is provided by a for-profit corporation, the mental health is provided by the county. Those two entities do not intersect, okay? And then Janice runs the sobering center, and unfortunately, you have medical assistants and EMTs running a sobering center where they maybe get 8 hours and someone is completely intoxicated to convince them to maybe seek treatment after, which we all know that's not a good time to try to get somebody to seek treatment when they're detoxing and they're not even detoxed. So it starts with the jail because, let's be honest, the jail is the mental health facility and it is the end result of if you get picked up at Camp Ross or anywhere else for doing drugs or petty crime, where do you end up? You end up in the jail. So
speaking to that, I have a client that I've spoken to recently. He said that he was suffering mental health crisis and it wasn't being addressed while he was incarcerated in our jail.
Yeah.
And he suffered tremendously. And I said, hey, well, I'm going to do whatever I can to change that. So, I mean, honestly, people are dying. This is why I'm coming back to work for Janice. I'm really looking to change it from within. But it's going to take the community to do that unilaterally.
I was one person at the county board of meetings, so I don't see these people show up when the budget hearings are happening and CFMG.
Which people?
The county board of supervisors runs these programs. So when you go and there's one person there advocating and they look at you like you're the crazy one person in the community, And the knowledge is out there. We keep re-upping their contract after multiple deaths. So I don't understand where the disconnect is, but if the information is not out there, everybody knows.
And so that's one of the great things about this meeting, and what I hope will come from it, is that now people that are concerned about these concepts of mental health and substance use issues, but are looking at the city to make that change happen, if you can redirect your energy, connect with Melissa, connect with people that are working in the mental health and substance use disorder fields, and join your power to support the National Union of Healthcare Workers Union locally here for Janus, support the increase of funding from the county level so that we can make sure we can open more beds and have the quality of care that's required. Because as a healthcare worker described to me, it's hearing your thing, is paying low wages impacts workers, and that impacts the quality of care. The lower quality of care impacts the patient success, and then that increases the people experiencing homelessness with mental health or substance use disorders. So it's all connected with regards to
The low wage creates an apathetic work environment. So then you have treatment techs, which I am, and then you have counselors that are just apathetic, and maybe a client will come in with a very complicated case and it'll just be too complicated. They don't want to deal with it. I'm not getting paid enough to deal with this. I honestly end up, and I am not the only staff person that does this, but people that really care will pick up the slack. They'll do extra. They'll do work on their days off. Right now I'm going to work on getting a client housing. But there, as we know, there's a housing crisis for affordable housing in our county, and she's got vouchers for Section 8 housing, and she's having a difficult time finding housing. So,
I would just like to say one thing. No matter how much money you have, how much money you don't have, if you live in a house or you don't live in a house, if you don't want to get clean, you're not going to. It's up to the person, no matter what. If they want to get clean, they'll get clean. There's no forcing getting somebody clean and have it work. It's not going to work. No matter what you do, or how much money you give them, or any of this stuff, it doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, if you own your house, you don't own your house, if you're a drug addict, and no matter pills, prescription pills are a drug, as well as anything else, street drug. I just really truly believe that if you want it, you'll get it.
Living proof.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, could we say when the supervisors meeting is, because people need to go to those as well as the city council. Are those Wednesday mornings at 9? Tuesday mornings at 9.
Oh, so working people can't go.
Well, anybody here who can go is who I'm talking to.
Yeah. Bring that
Look on their website, supervisor website.
So I didn't know about the county being responsible for that kind of funding, and I'm wondering, is there a prohibition against the city also keeping financing for some of these programs?
So the money in the budget, they have a much larger budget than the city does with regards to being able to allocate money for that kind of healthcare and services. And it's just not in this, when you talk to city staff and other city representatives, they say, well, it's not in the city charter or the description of the city. If we're here to do the services and the roads and all this other kind of stuff, the county's the one that's supposed to do that. So you have to pressure the county and contact the county supervisors. We'll go here, and then I want to make sure that I can let everyone know about some of the other things to address the issues.
Just real quick, the county and the city just got handed $10 million as a grant.
Thank you.
Why can't Janus get some of that money, because that grant is to help the homeless? Well, I bet you a lot of people that Janus deal with are homeless. Why can't they get a chunk of that to either pay their employees better or open more beds or all of the above?
So if you look at the Sentinel, they have a breakdown of where all the money went. It's a lot of different places. $1 million was put to, $1 million. It's amazing how fast $10 million go when it's broken up between things. $1 million of it did come to the city for specifically focusing on emergency shelter options and the implementation of these different things, and also some other property purchases, but it did get dispersed rather quickly. And I'm curious, because I don't remember seeing Janus being listed on there for additional funding, but I have to check the actual rundown. Karen?
I just had several conversations with board supervisors, because I wanted to ask the same question. So where's the money going? Why can't it go to substance abuse? What I was told, and I actually put it up on Nextdoor today, they've doubled their beds, which is still not enough for Medi-Cal, drug and alcohol. And there was a list of people who were organizations that got the money. You had to apply for the money. It wasn't just given to people randomly. And I also found out that, because I was specifically asking about safe parking, that outside of the city limits, the county has established 17 safe parking areas. So I asked Ryan Coonerty, where are they? And he said he'd get back to me. He said there are 17 3 to 5 car parking places outside of the city limits.
That's why, because they're only 3 to 5 cars.
They're at churches, yes.
And so with that, and then I'll come back here, there's a couple things I want to touch on really quick, and then we'll come back here to both of y'all. Did you have something you want to say too? No, it's just you and you, okay. Someone asked about what's going on with the planning. You don't hear much from the county, you don't hear much from the city. The structure of the way that the county and the city are interacting with each other is what's called a homeless 2x2. And so it's 2 representatives from the city, which is the mayor and the vice mayor, and 2 representatives from the county, which is Ryan Coonerty and, to my knowledge, Bruce McPherson. And they come together and they talk about plans and decide on things. It's incredibly muddy when it comes to the transparency. Like, if you were asking me, what is the homeless 2x2 doing right now, I could not tell you, and I'm a council member. So there's something wrong with that. I don't know what's going on. How are y'all supposed to know what's going on? So that's one thing I'm bringing up at the next meeting, is to try to get more clarity on what's happening with the homeless 2x2 and some more transparency in what's going on so that people can be aware of what's happening. Does it have to do with public health? Okay. And public health? No. Okay. So, because we're going to move through, because we got a couple more topics, and then we'll come back to the general discussion.
I just wanted to say that as somebody who is, I was doing a healing journey. It did not involve substance abuse, but it did involve complex trauma and trauma. And so I discovered a program called Seeking Safety, which I feel is a wonderful, wonderful program. And many of the people who came into the program with me were people who had substance abuse disorder. This program, I think, is it's directed to facilitators. It's freely available. There's a book on it, and I just think it's wonderful. And I wish that it was offered throughout the city, and kind of it could be offered in the way that Alcoholics Anonymous is offered, where people freely go in and it's anonymous and you work the program yourself. Anyway, the reason I'm suggesting this is because I just really think that it's like, it wouldn't take a whole lot of money, but it's something people need to know about. It's online. I can tell you the author. I just wanted to mention that because I don't want to go into more detail, but it's a beautiful, beautiful, effective program that helps people understand what their thoughts are leading them into, and gives people a range of skills and just wonderful things. So please look into that. Seeking Safety. Just want to add, as an activist who tries to go to a lot of city council meetings, very differently. Going to meetings takes time, and it's hard, even when you're really into it. And I think it's interesting that the county supervisors meeting is at 9 o'clock on the same exact day as city council meetings. And
Melissa, hold on a second. Keep going.
That seems to me to be counterproductive. I don't know if that's true, but it seems to me they should be on 2 different days.
Yeah. Thank you. And so one thing that I was going to mention before Melissa left, if that's okay, is the next part of this 3-part plan, which under public safety and health, is the implementation of safety needles for the needle distribution. Who here knows about safety syringes? Show of hands. Okay, so safety syringes are syringes that automatically retract the needle after the person is done using them, so that even if they do discard it, it avoids the potential of contamination and or unintended pricking. I don't know if that's the actual technical term for it, but is that for you? And all kinds of things.
So I know about all the issues having to do with the secondary syringe and also the one at Emmeline. But the problem is not that the problem is that the syringes are all over our beaches and parks. They're disgusting. I don't care if you're going to step on it and get stuck. You have to teach your children to watch out for them. it's someone mentioned that we live in this beautiful place and we're covering it with garbage. I mean, it's, to me, it's just like, if you, yes, you need some needles, then exchange them. Bring them in. Here's my 10 dirties, here's your 10 cleans. None of this hundreds going to one individual who says, I'm picking up for 2 other people, 3 other people. You know, that is just what's unbelievable. You know that a syringe exchange operated in Santa Cruz for 25 years, and there were no needles, and because they had a system of exchange, and they also surrounded people with counseling. That was through the Diversity Center, and they surrounded people, they got to know people, and people were beholden to them and the community. So handing out a ton of needles to people that are not beholden, it's trash. It doesn't matter what kind of needles they are. It's the fact that they're all over.
Absolutely.
You know? Seriously.
And just to respond, I am in that same vein with you. It's a terrible. I'm on the same side with you when it comes to protecting the environment from trash. I'm the executive director of Project Pollinate. Everything's connected, so we want to make sure that we keep trash out of the environment. From the needle exchange harm reduction side of things, statistically, data speaking, having a one-to-one exchange is less effective than doing a not one-to-one exchange. But if we can figure out a way to keep the needles that are going out into the community from being in the environment, someone mentioned to me, why don't we do a needle buyback program where people get 10 cents a needle for everyone they pick up, so that we have people picking up needles off the street, right? So there are other solutions, ideally, also that goes along with that. I don't know the original structure of the Santa Cruz needle exchange and if it was a one-for-one or not, but even on the, we'll come to you next, and then over to Cynthia, and then back there to Lion, even the California legislation specifically says that it shouldn't be a one-to-one exchange program. But anyway, just giving you some feedback as far as the rationale behind the not.
Yeah, I've read all of it, and I understand it, but our exchange, even at Emmeline, is not even following. California has a website that's printed, their government website. We're not even following the things on that at Emmeline. So you can imagine the secondary exchange that's showing up at Camp Ross is not following any of the tenets that are laid out by our government. That says, here's 20 things, and I read all 20 of them. We are not doing it. Dr. Left is running it, and he's not even interviewing. You're supposed to know who the clients are. If you're giving them 100 needles, you need to know who they are and see them. That's not happening right now at Emmeline.
So
Seriously.
County supervisors and public health, all important. Yeah, we have him who has a microphone.
Hi, David again. As far as the original needle exchange that was at the drop-in center across from the Metro, which is now AA Fellowship, I can still go there and get what I need. I was a drug fiend, IV drug user on the streets of Santa Cruz for the better parts of 8 years. I was homeless. It is possible to pull out with hard work and help, not enabling. I'm all for harm reduction. It probably saved my life while I was using it to be able to go and get clean needles, but those needles had value. I had to show up with a needle, they had to see it, and then they'd give me a clean one. Now, a needle is handed out, and whatever container it may show up in again is weighed. And the county claims that they bring back more needles every month than they give out. But they don't know what's in those containers. They don't know if those needles are full of water. They don't know if there's soda bottles in the bags that they pull out of the kiosks. So it's all a farce that there's accountability for the returned needles, and that sucks. That being said, the city is not responsible for the needle exchange that's going on. It shouldn't even be in the equation to be talked about in this situation, I feel, because as soon as you start talking about it, well, all of a sudden, people think that the city owns it. And we're working really hard to try and get people to realize that we need to beat the county about this. As far as the single-use needles, the covered needles, addicts will not use them. And yes, no matter what you call it, an addict is an addict, addiction is addiction.
Why won't they use it?
They won't use it because for someone that misses the vein, as soon as you put that needle in the skin, it activates the closing mechanism. As soon as you pull it out of the skin, that mechanism closes. So if you miss your vein and you have to try and find it again, like a phlebotomist trying to take your blood and misses and has to go in one more time, instantly that needle is no longer usable. Now all of their dope is inside that needle and they have to go to another needle or break off the safety mechanisms off of it to be able to get their dope out of there to get their fix.
And they break the safety mechanism off.
Then what's the point? They're more expensive. Unfortunately, it's a great idea, it looks good on paper, but an addict is not going to use them. And they'll use it if you hand it out, that's about it.
It's really valuable, so thank you for that. We got over here.
I have something to say about the Homeless Action Partnership, but it's not part of the needle thing, I can say it after.
If you, well, what is it about the Homeless Action Partnership?
Some miscommunications. It wasn't $1 million that came to the city specifically. There was $1 million that was going to be used for the first 3 months until June, and 600,000 of it was for services, like Salvation Army was going to do the 1220 River. 300,000 of it was going to be split between the city, the county, and Watsonville were the three that did the emergency declarations. So there was 100,000 that the city got to spend as they wanted to. And then the other 100,000 of that $1 million was going to be for a media campaign, more discussions like this. And then all the rest of the money was June onward. Most of it has to be spent within 2 years. And Janice could have applied, but it all had to be programs very specifically for homeless services in some way. And there was a bunch of different versions of immediate needs versus long-term needs versus housing and all sorts of stuff. But it all had to be very specifically, had to be homeless money. And one other thing I wanted to correct was the city interacts with the county. It's true on the 2x2, but the city manager's office is on a HAP executive committee.
Right.
And that they make, and that's a closed door discussion, which, yeah.
But it's not just with the county, it's other city managers.
All the city managers, CAO, Director of Health Services, Director of Human Services, there's a bunch there. But the city manager is the representative of the city at those kind of, what all that, the Janus and all those kind of things. If it's homeless money, they are represented. Just to put it out there. And you got, city has a living wage, county has a living wage. Both of them, I think, I know the county one has an exception that nonprofits don't have to do a living wage. So as we talk about Janus getting paid more and doing better services, well, the homeless shelters, all those people, if they were paid more, trained more, they'd be doing better services and engaging and connecting with people in a better way too.
So CERC has been involved in the process with the HAP board for a long time in the process, so if you have questions or clarifications, you can always ask him after the meeting. We got Cynthia, and then we'll come back to you.
I have to get going. I just wanted to see if we could, just before I go, I wanted to just find out about the Bronx campus. Is it definitely going to close? Is there any way to improve it so that we can just keep it there so we don't have to move it, everyone somewhere else? Is that a possibility? And if it's not, what are some of the other sites you're looking at? I know you talked about some place over in Harvey West. You talked about Poganip.
Absolutely, yes. So yes, okay, so cut to the chase. What's going on with the Ross camp? So in your packet, also, one of the questions was, why don't you just close the Ross camp right now? And the short answer is because it's illegal. So that is very, very comprehensive, right? It's illegal for us to be able to close the camp. The only reason why it's illegal, though, is because of a decision called Martin v. Boise. Who here knows about it? Show him. Okay, good. So a considerable amount of you. And it makes it so that we cannot enforce sleeping regulations if we don't have the shelter space available for the people that are in the space or that are being displaced. So until we have a solid 150 to 200 beds to be able to relocate the people into, it's very difficult for us to be able to make that move without facing either an injunction or some kind of lawsuit against the city by the people in the camp. So that's one of the reasons why we're trying to move as quickly as possible. I see you. Okay, Alicia, okay, cool. All right, cool. So that's the reason why we're moving so quickly, especially with trying to establish these alternative sleeping sites and locations, because until we open them, we cannot clear the camp, and as long as we can't clear the camp, we can't deal with the health implications or issues that are taking place within the camp. A lot of people are like, well, why don't you just do it anyway? It's incredibly dangerous litigiously. So that's the short answer. The long answer is there's 1220 River Street, which is working on becoming an open and operational site right there. There's the Salvation Army, which is about another 40 beds, so it's supposedly 60 at the 1220, 40 at the Salvation Army. There's the Live Oak location as well. What other shelters are there?
But the ones that are already going, those, you can't count those as beds.
Only if there's space that's available in them, right? So, and so this is where it can get tricky, because no matter, even if we do open 200 beds, there's, according to the counts, which we know are wrong, there's way more than we have that are actually counted. We have approximately 930 people that are sleeping outside based off of our 2017 count. Now we're waiting on the 2019 counts, but I guarantee you, or I don't guarantee you, let me phrase that, I am very likely to make the claim that those numbers will be up instead of down. So the question then enters in, do we need to have shelter for all of those people before we can start enforcing laws, or do we just need enough for just the camp? And if we can't open up another site, what are all the alternative opportunities for us to be able to do it? Does it mean getting motel vouchers, which is a conversation that's happening right now, and then giving people motel vouchers for a couple of days to say we have shelter space for them, close the camp, but then what happens when their shelter or their motel vouchers run out is they're going to be back out on the street in the neighborhoods and in the
Why can't you just improve the camp, like piece by piece or whatever?
So, that is a very interesting idea, and I'm glad that someone here mentioned it before I did. So, this is a conversation that's going on in general because of the resistance that we have experienced in the different communities where we've made the propositions of establishing an encampment. A seemingly alternative decision would be to vacate the camp to deal with all kinds of other health and safety concerns, bring in a nonprofit to run it, and then establish that as a transitional encampment that's managed. Now, I'm sure that will have a spectrum of perspectives, even in this room, of what people may think about that. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Instead of closing it and forcing them somewhere else, closing it and not having the shelter space for them, closing it and risking a lawsuit to the city, closing it temporarily and putting the people into a motel or into one of our other shelter systems while we retrofit the property, and then turn that into a permanent transitional encampment. I'd love to hear your perspectives on that as well. A lot of hands went up throughout that process. So we'll go Alicia, and then we'll go, you said a couple things we're going to try.
Right next, I gave him my microphone.
That's the difference. You yielded your time, but that's okay.
Up short.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll go Cynthia, then
Just that there are about...
Rafa, wait a second, then Ernestina. I'm trying to get people that haven't said anything yet.
I never finished my thing in the health.
Okay, great. So we'll get to Ernestina, and then we'll reset and see who's where. So boom, Ernestina, and then we'll...
There are about 1,000 homeless people in the city, right? Are there about 1,000? Okay, so there's about maybe 150 sleeping in the camp. So does this law then mean that you have to have shelter beds for all of the other people, including the people who are sleeping in doorways that is public property, or people who are in their cars? Yeah, so how does the law, I mean, just because maybe you find enough beds for the people in that camp, that's 20% or 25 maybe of the homeless people here. So that's my question.
So just a quick answer to that, and then we'll go on to the next speaker, is that's up to the lawyers. And I am not a lawyer. I don't profess to be a lawyer. I go off of what our lawyer tells us, and based off of the plan and the language that has been used at previous meetings and in other interactions, we're just trying to get the bare minimum of the amount for people in that camp. Because even after we do that, then we can't enforce anything else in the city until we get more spaces. So we'll still have people sleeping in doorways, we'll still have people sleeping on the levee, all these other kinds of things. Even after we close the camp and get those people into other locations. So we'll go, Alicia and then Ernestina, thank you.
Sure, I just wanted to speak on that real quick. Martin versus Boise is fairly new. There haven't been a lot of new things to challenge that or to be brought up since that. There have been several interpretations of Martin versus Boise. I think that the city should be, and the city manager should be very careful in this instance when they're interpreting their own interpretation of Martin versus Boise. It's my interpretation of Martin versus Boise that it's when the number of homeless people in any jurisdiction outnumbers the available, and I did say available, indoor shelter beds. So it's not the people at the Ross camp. It is the homeless population and unhoused people as a whole. That's the number that you need to go by, not the people at the Ross camp. And you know, if the city does do that, they are facing potential lawsuits. So we have to be very careful about how we interpret Martin versus Boise right now.
Thank you.
I'm going to speak from my own experience. And when I was homeless and I was living in a shelter, it was an inside shelter under a roof, but I had to leave that place by 7 o'clock every morning, regardless if it was weekend, if it was holiday, if it was whatever. And I had to be back by 5 o'clock or I would lose my place. That's no shelter, because what happened with that schedule, I lost my job doing that. So what we need to do, if we want people to be back on their feet, you need to provide a real housing, real place where they can stay there if they are sick, stay there if it's raining, have a place to cook, because believe me, you can know it that many McDonald's in one room. So one of the reasons I was able to be on my wheels again was because I was able to get into a transitional housing. It took me 6 months and free daycare. Was the only way I was able to get out of there with enough money to rent a house, to put the down payment, put the deposit into the rental, and start building my life back again. Okay, but that's what you need. And I'm gonna have to say that I completely agree with Alicia that if you don't provide inside shelter, it's no shelter at all. Okay, you can provide the transitional camping again, but it's gonna be the same thing. The reason why I have not been at the Ross camp to show support is because it's inaccessible. And that's the main thing. You have a lot of people in there who is disabled, and I have seen them being pushed by other people, and I have to say that I admire and I want to make the point that in that camp, people help each other. I have seen them going off the hill to the levee, pushing the person, you know, and there is almost like a kind of like a family feeling there. So that helps people. That helps people, you know, to feel safe, to feel other people who are supporting, and that's the way to heal.
One of the questions I've had is about the shelters and what we are calling beds. And I'm very new to all of this, and so obviously I haven't been in one, but it appears to me it's a yoga mat on the floor with no division of people, no privacy, no sense at all of personal agency, and so that worries me. And I'm going to go back to my original suggestion from like 2 months ago at one of the meetings. Why don't we spend some of that money on one of the pavilions that the FEMA put up after the earthquake, put that in place to create, or even an arena, some kind of temporary, semi-permanent building that then the tents could go inside of that, have more cleanliness, have privacy, partitions from each other, bathrooms, laundry, community kitchen. All of that could be done in one place where it already is at Ross, behind Ross. I know Ross doesn't want it to be called that. So at the River Street Highway 1 camp, make it clean, make it covered, make it private, and make it less of an eyesore to the community of housed people who are complaining but not actually showing up to help.
I have talked to people about and that I heard was discussed last night is the idea of people being able to open up their homes or their backyards to people who need shelter. So I wonder, Drew, if there's any mechanism, I don't know if you got to hear that whole thing, but in the idea of people who are willing in the community to open up their homes or their backyards to offer shelter, is there any kind of clearinghouse that could be put together for that? I mean, I'm sure if we have 60 beds on River Street and we need another 100, I'm sure with all the people that talk about how concerned they are and, they want to do something, maybe that would be a way for the community to help. Would those beds count as shovel?
So I also have a question about the timing and the funding. So what happens after the end of June when the funding would run out potentially for the existing shelter at the Salvation Army, at the BFW, at the new River Street camp, and at any other potential transitional encampment that we're talking about tonight? In addition, another question I had is when it comes to substance abuse issues, could we not have some sort of transitional shelter program that would tolerate some sort of substance use, but only as a path towards sobriety, with some sort of contract to get people clean?
So three all really great comments. Just a second, we'll respond to those while it's still fresh, and then we'll jump back to a couple other people. Thank you. So the question of people's yards and houses, that conversation hasn't started, in my understanding. So I don't know the safety stuff that would go into that, the liability that would be associated with that. I mean, people would have to take that upon themselves to be able to do that. But there are people in the community that I know that have done that and opened it up to people that they've met, and those people are thriving, and there's a positive relationship there. So it's feasible, it's doable, and people are doing it independently. I don't know if it's possible to have it be a city-structured program, but it's something that we can encourage and advocate for people to do. With regards to the sprung structure, for those of you that know the Homeless Service Center, we have, so we have like River Street, Highway 9, so River Street's over here, Highway 9's up here, here's Highway 1. The Homeless Service Center is right here on the intersection, right? So there's a building right next door to it, which is a metal fabrication building. The city is in the process of purchasing that property and then transitioning that into a navigation potential tenty spot. So
Right next to the services.
right next to services, which is good. So that's a possible thing. We got to get in there. We got to clean up the property. We got to figure out how we're going to use the building. Right. And then the question about so it was the sprung structures. It was the people in the homes. It was the money. Okay. So June it closes. That's a short answer. So the Salvation Army closes. If we don't have enough money to keep running the other ones, they close. And so we have to, so that's why we have to figure out, there is supposed to be more money coming from the state, like a second infusion at some point. And so there's that. And, what's that?
Wasn't there 10 million?
There's 10 million, but when you have, I think there was how many millions of dollars were in the requests? I'm gonna let Serge.
30.
30?
Yeah.
So there was $10 million of money, $30 million of requests that came in, and so it's gone, essentially, or it has been distributed. Your other question, Rafa?
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I don't know if you addressed like basically what happens after the end of June in terms of do we have to close down the camps, or would there be another legal issue with closing camps that we've already established but are no longer funded? And then my other question was, could we have housing towards sobriety that allows?
Oh, right. So there are people in this room actually that are advocating for multiple transitional encampments to be established. One that is a high barrier, which would see it probably 1220, because that one's going to be like heavy security all the time, no ins and out privileges as much as possible, like they had last time. Then there's a medium barrier camp, which is the one that I'm proposing, which is more accessible for people. It's not a you use and you're out model, but it's a you use and you get a warning, you use again, you get a mandatory case manager, you use a third time, you're out of the community. And then there are other people that are advocating for a low barrier model, something that you're suggesting also, where it is a little bit more lax, but only if they're on a path to being successful. And so that's a little bit more inviting for certain populations of people. I'm open to try whatever we can, but I just want to make sure that it's effective. And I think if we have, because people say, well, how are you gonna, if you open a camp, no one's gonna go there, or, X, Y, and Z, how are you gonna figure out who's who and who's where? If we open up 3 different camps with 3 different levels of barriers, and then we let the people matriculate themselves, then we'll be able to identify, okay, who's ready, who's on their way, and who is interested but not really there yet. And so that's the logic between those 3 different structures. Once we run out of money and we have to close them, I'm not sure. I'm going to let Brent speak because he wanted to speak, and then Serge answer questions or clarifications of whatever Brent doesn't talk about.
You never gonna have me after we were talking about
You
health.
away the microphone like 4 times.
I didn't need a microphone.
Well, you need it, but just use the microphone, please. Please use the microphone. So Lion.
I don't like to use electronics. I don't need it.
Yeah, please use it.
I'm anti-electronic. Louder. Okay. All right. So with the needle thing, we have to have more boxes to drop them off all over the place. I ran into that the other day. I was at Leary's Lagoon. I'm sitting there hanging by the creek. I find some needles. I had to walk all the way back to the Metro Center. Why is there some, along the beaches, there needs to be a whole bunch of boxes along the beaches, so anybody finds that, get rid of them right away. So they're not there, okay? The other thing is we need to have a mental health place for people that are in between. I had a guy who was fighting for his life. I literally pulled him back from walking out on the highway a couple different times, ready to kill himself. He was eating pills. We asked him not to do that. He was trustworthy enough not to take all his pills. But when we took our other friend to the Dominican hospital because he was having physical problems, he had to go to the hospital. My other friend that was having the mental problems was having a breakdown with his life. So we asked him at the hospital, well, where can we take this man? So where they send us down that place, was it 5150 on Soquel? Is that what that is?
Telecare.
Which one?
It's called Telecare.
Telecare? So it's a lockdown place. And we told him at the hospital that he would not go there. He would run, he would fight. He's a big, tough man, okay? He needed a place in between. So we go there. What they do, me and the security guard go in with the evaluators. They evaluate him. They kicked me and the security guard out. He told them, I want him here with me. You don't, and you're gonna, they didn't tell him it was a lockdown place either. We didn't find out until we got there that they can hold him there for 3 days. He said, there's no way they're gonna hold me, I'll fight. So then they tried, then there was that. So after they evaluate him, so what they do? They give him back to me and send us away on tax. So they didn't have any way to deal with this man. They need ways to deal with these people, and there are ways. And I was able to solve it. I'm not even a mental health professional.
So I want to tell everybody to use the microphone, but they're all out of my way right now. It is 8:03, so we're going to have 3 more comments, because there's one up here and then these 2. And then if we want to continue the conversation while we're all packing up, that's great. But we do have to be out of the building around 8:30 and to pack up all the chairs and everything done. So, Brett, go!
I direct the storage program, homeless storage program called Day and Night. Today we had our 400th discrete user of the program since June. Imagine the tonnage we're shelving. We have over 300 people currently on the shelves. What I want to say was right across the bridge from the encampment. Last year I was in San Lorenzo benchlands every single day documenting that camp. What we discovered was about a third of those people aren't from our community. A third of those people are from, that don't access shelter, but a third we would really like to help. It's really unfortunate that the city itself has created this strange attractor that has brought people from out of the area. Normally I would say homelessness is not a magnet effect, but this camp has been. It's not, it doesn't have an organized front. We watch people load up in trucks, bringing furniture out and we're like, where are these people coming from? People, you go into the encampment, most of the people from Santa Cruz over many years said, we've never seen these people before. So it's really unfortunate that this is now our litmus test for creating something. As somebody advocating for transitional encampments for many, many years, we've been trying to ask ourselves this question. If we were going to take better care of ourselves as a community, what would that look like? We would say the people in doorways are a reflection of ourselves. We would find ways by any means necessary to get people out of the shelters. And I went to 40 cities researching, and I found an array, exactly what Drew has proposed. Safe sleep zones, transitional encampments, car programs. They're all over the place. And that's what we would do to get every single person out of the doorway who wants it. And we could do it by next month if we really cared about it. Look at all these people who are now engaged in homelessness that we've never seen before. Welcome to it. And let's do something novel. And let's, instead of protesting or going like this for a single issue that we don't like, a program, we need all of them. Let's not pick our favorite one and then protest all the other ones. Let's be in this together because this is our communal challenge. I also direct the Warming Center program, and I've seen a complete transformation with this program alone. I'm not an expert in homelessness. I don't have a master's of social degree, but I have seen a complete transformation by showing dignity, by saying not one person has to sleep outside on the coldest nights anymore. That's transformed our community. Having storage has transformed our community. We haven't even acknowledged that. And a transitional encampment would transform our community. A safe sleeping zone would transform our community. So you don't want it in your backyard? It's already in your backyard. It's up everywhere. Come on. Thanks, Drew. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Serge, and then we have Stephanie, was it? Crystal? Wow, totally up. And then what was your name? Sasha. Okay, great. So Serge, and we'll bring it over here, and then Serge and Sasha, and then Crystal, and then we'll have to...
Yeah, just answering to the funding question. I guess we're talking about just North County. So 1220 River Street, I think the Water District's doing some construction in July, so Salvation Army's contract is only till the end of June. The Laurel Street, the county actually found different funding for it, but it's still only till June right now. 7th Avenue also is end of June. Of the 10 million, there was $1 million that wasn't really allocated that was for North County Navigation Center. And we just didn't have a good application for it. So there's still the decision of that Navigation Center with $1 million, which is sort of like what 1220 would cost or something. But that idea of more case management, just the shelter, that everybody gets an individualized plan, which isn't. So to say they could continue some of them, not the 1220 if they're going to become construction.
Serge.
So June is going to be a bad. July's going to be tough.
Yeah, it sounds like it'll be tough. And I want to say thank you to you and to the other people who have generously given of their time and their resources for so many years to help out people in need. But I'm probably going to be the mean sounding one to say that a lot of us do worry that if we put a lot of resources into worthwhile programs here, because this is a national problem, that we will attract, and that we have already attracted because of the kind of friendly community we are, a lot of homeless people to our community, people who are already unhoused or living in their cars. And the more we put into it, the more we're going to take on the burdens of more and more of the country's poor, and we can't do that as a community. And I think a lot of us will really hesitate to put resources into what looks like a bottomless pit if it's, all for taking care of our own, all for everybody being taken, all for a universal basic income and universal health care and all of that, but that's has to be at a national level, or at least at a state level. We can't provide it for the country, or for however many people manage to win their way here. And I likewise, you have a lot more exposure and experience, but most of the homeless people that I've talked to, living transiently, practically in my front yard, or in Laurel Park across the street from me, sometimes literally in my front yard. Most of them haven't been from this area. And they are drawn here, partly because it's a welcoming community. And that, that's got to be part of the conversation in terms of where we're going to put our resources. Those same resources could also go to paying teachers more and paying other city workers more, policemen more. I mean, the ones I know are like, oh no, we work over the hill because they pay in San Jose, so that they can afford, to have a real life here. And I'm not saying I don't support homeless services. I'm just saying those have to be put in balance. One last thing along those lines, I really think insofar as we do deal with this as a community, we have to do it with the county. Because among other things, for the simple reason that there is cheaper, less vulnerable land in this county than there is in the city limits of Santa Cruz. People are gonna sleep somewhere. It would be better to set up these facilities somewhere cheaper. Now, I don't think it should be behind Ross. And I certainly don't think it should be in the middle of a residential neighborhood. I don't think it should be in the middle of the tourist district where we, get a lot of income for the city. Light industrial park, maybe over on the west side, or, in an agricultural area, but land that's not currently in use. It's just plain going to be cheaper and more practical to do these remediations.
Thank you. So we'll have one more comment and then we will bring the group to a close. Before you leave, if you wouldn't mind helping to stack a chair or two, that would make a huge impact because it's just me and one or two of my team members here. But before we even start packing up chairs, Crystal.
Yes. I kind of lost what I was going to say, but I do want to say that I am going to be a success story in Santa Cruz. I've been very blessed to house the inpatient, which, like I said before, there are no rules. It's up to me. I've already got a job. I've been there 3 weeks, and it's because I want to. And in all of that, I'm involved with stress because I'm housed, but it's broke up my relationship because my other half is not housed. And maybe we should think about that as well when we do house people, to not single them out, or I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that I will be a success story.
Okay, so really good conversation. How do we feel about it?
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of great input, ideas, concerns, all of which was recorded by this gentleman right here. And we'll be in contact with y'all. Like I said, if you are interested in receiving an informational newsletter, please make sure you're signed up on that sign-up sheet before you leave and check the newsletter box. That way we'll be able to go through all of these concerns and craft some resources that you can have, some suggestions, some ideas, and open up a line of communication so that you can continuously share your ideas and solutions with my office, and I can bring that to my colleagues' attention when it's appropriate at city council meetings. Also, if you're interested in just talking more in general or scheduling a meeting with me, please send an email to my inbox, dglover@cityofsantacruz.com, and I will have someone schedule a time for us to sit down and talk face-to-face in more detail. If you want more of my time one-on-one, that's what I'm here for, and we'll kind of go from there really quick.
Can you announce the next city council meeting on homelessness and the Ross account discussion is going to happen?
Absolutely, so it's coming up, the next city council meeting is this Tuesday, the 9th of April. The homelessness topic will most likely, because the agenda hasn't come out yet, but will most likely be in the evening agenda. If it's been where it has been before, it'll start at 7:30 right after oral communications, which is when people have the chance to talk to the council about something not on the agenda. So if people are around, you'll have to, just to be sure though, on Saturday, go onto the website and and look at the agenda. If any of y'all don't know how to find agendas on the website, please let me know or send me an email and I'll send you a link to the agenda so that you can access it. But if you go to the website and just type in Santa Cruz City Council agendas, a little calendar will pop up on our page and then you can click on the agenda associated with it.
If anyone wanted to, didn't get a chance to say something that was really on their mind, or they wanted to bring something to Councilmember Glover's attention, please let me know and I'll write it down and make sure that he gets an opportunity to see it. Thank you very much.
So you can look forward to more of these conversations. I'm going to try to do them in every major region of the city of Santa Cruz. So this is the first one in Depot Park. We'll probably do one next either up on the west side or in the Seabright neighborhood. Then we'll be up in the upper west side area and then down in the Beach Flats kind of zone, River Street, Lower Ocean.